Welcome. At the end of this video, you are expected to be able to accomplish the things listed out below. The atmosphere of the Earth today consists of around 78% nitrogen, around 21% oxygen, and other gases that make up the remaining 1% consist of carbon dioxide, water vapor, and noble gases. The gases in the atmosphere have stayed constant in the past 200 million years. The Earth is around 4.6 billion years old, which means that scientists can't be certain about the early atmosphere. According to scientists, the surface of the Earth was molten, and during this time, there was intense volcanic activity. These volcanoes released the gases that formed the atmosphere. One of these gases was water vapor. After 500 million years, the Earth cooled down and the water vapor condensed to form oceans. Volcanoes also release huge amounts of carbon dioxide. There is said to be 200 times more carbon dioxide before than in today's atmosphere. In the early stages of the Earth, the atmosphere consisted of mainly carbon dioxide with little or no oxygen, similar to the atmosphere of Venus and Mars today. Volcanoes also released other gases. This includes nitrogen, which gradually built up in the atmosphere. Apart from the level of nitrogen, there are two obvious differences between the early atmosphere and the atmosphere today. First, there is a vast difference in the carbon dioxide levels between before and today's atmosphere. Secondly, before, there is very little oxygen in the early atmosphere, whereas oxygen makes up 21% of today's atmosphere. Now let us move on to how these changes happen. We now know that water vapor from volcanoes condense to form oceans. At this stage, some of the carbon dioxide dissolved in the oceans to form a weak acid. This reacted with minerals in the sea to form precipitates. Over time, this formed sediments of carbonate rock on the seabed. Some of the carbon dioxide in the sea was used to make corals and shells of organisms such as mussels. When these died, they formed the sedimentary rock limestone. This also removed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. This explains the depletion of carbon dioxide in today's atmosphere. The question now is, where did the oxygen come from? Around 2.7 million years ago, photosynthetic algae first evolved in the oceans. Photosynthesis produced oxygen which entered the atmosphere. Over the following billion years, plants evolved. This increased the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, and because photosynthesis uses carbon dioxide, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere continues to fall. That concludes how the changes happened in the composition of the atmosphere. Let's move on to air pollution. Air pollution is the presence of toxic chemicals or compounds in the air at levels that pose a health risk. The following are air pollutants, their sources, and their effects on human health and environment. The first type of air pollutant would be aldehydes. It's a product of thermal decomposition of fats, and oils, and glycerol. Its pathological effects on man are nasal irritation and respiratory tracts. The second one is ammonia. It is a product of chemical processes such as dye making, explosives, and fertilizers. Its effect on man is inflammation of respiratory passage. It also causes acidification of ground and water bodies, which can harm plant and animal life. The third pollutant is arsenic. It comes from coal and oil furnaces and from glass manufacturing. Arsenic causes kidney damage, jaundice, and lung and skin cancer. The fourth pollutant is benzene. It comes from refineries, motor vehicles, and smelters. Long-term exposure to benzene may cause leukemia. Benzene reacts with other chemicals in the atmosphere to form smog, which can cause damage to crops and materials. The last example of a pollutant is chlorine. It is a product of the chemical industries. Chlorine affects the respiratory tracts and mucous membranes. Chlorine causes environmental harm at low levels, but it is especially harmful to organisms in water and in soil. The last topic would be global warming. So what exactly is global warming? Global warming, which is also referred to as climate change, is the observed rise in the average temperature of the Earth's climate system. Global warming is a serious environmental issue. The causes are divided into two categories, which include natural and human influences. Most climate scientists agree that the main cause of the current global warming trend is human expansion of the greenhouse effect caused by greenhouse gases. We have learned earlier that today's atmosphere is composed of 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% other gases. More specifically, these other gases are composed of a variable amount of water vapor, around 0.04% of carbon dioxide, and tiny amounts of methane. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane are all greenhouse gases. Next would be what greenhouse gases do. Energy from the sun travels to the earth as short wavelength radiation. For example, is ultraviolet and visible light. Some of the short wavelength radiation simply reflects back into space, but most of it passes easily through the atmosphere. That is because short wavelength radiation does not interact strongly with the gas in the atmosphere. The energy of the radiation is absorbed when it reaches the surface of the earth. The surface of the Earth now radiates the energy as long-wavelength radiation such as infrared. Some of the long-wavelength radiation interacts with the greenhouse gas molecules in the atmosphere, which means that the energy in the long-wavelength radiation is absorbed. But because the energy is trapped in the atmosphere, this causes the temperature of the atmosphere to increase. The most important and concise idea about the greenhouse effect is that the greenhouse effect keeps the temperature on Earth warm enough to support life. As a matter of fact, without the greenhouse effect, the Earth would be too cold for most organisms to survive. That would be all. Thank you for watching.